Welcome to the 10th episode of the TerpTalk YoungTerps podcast presented by Viner Consulting. This is your host, Mason the Intern Viner.
And your co-host, Jordan Viner.
And today on the Young Terp podcast, we will be talking about Maryland Rutgers at Yankee Stadium, Maryland home against Michigan, and then there's just a bunch of recruiting news that we are catching up on.
Yep, it should be a good one. We got football and basketball news this week.
So let's jump right into Maryland Rutgers at Yankee Stadium, which I think is going to be a really interesting environment considering that they don't play football that much in baseball stadiums. It's just going to be a really fun game to go to.
Well, it's definitely a growing trend in recent years. We've seen quite a few football games in baseball stadiums, but you're right, this is still pretty new, and it'll be the first game that you've ever gone to at a baseball stadium for football.
That's, of course, unless you count RFK when the Eagle Bank Bowl used to be there. I mean, the Nationals were playing there then, but that is also a football stadium. But the game itself is not that interesting.
No, you'd hope to be a blowout for the Terps, but you really never know. Last year, Maryland won pretty handily, but even then you'd hope to be a bigger win.
Well, last year there was a lot on the line in the Maryland-Rutgers game at Maryland Stadium when the Terps won 31-13 to become bowl eligible at 6-6. But this year, both teams have questions, but especially Rutgers. They're coming off a 2-10 season. It was Chris Ash's first year, and they're just looking to improve. It doesn't look like they're going to be much better, but they're just looking for improvement in any way that they can get it.
Well, yeah, have always, except for small stretches, been a lackluster football program, and they've hoped that Chris Ash, the former defensive coordinator of Ohio State, and also the defensive back coach there, he looked like a good hire at the time, and you still can't say he really isn't. He's only in his second season, but they certainly hoped he'd be better last year than they were.
So here's a stat for the people that think Maryland gets smashed against all the good Big Ten teams. Here's a stat for you. Last year, against Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, and Michigan State, Jordan, guess what the score was to those four games combined?
Gonna say not a lot.
It was 224-0.
To 0?
They did not score a point in those four games.
Oh my, wow. Yeah, I know they lost to Michigan 78-0 at home, but that is a huge loss. I wonder what Maryland's margin on that is.
Well,
they were trying to fix the zero this year with new offensive coordinator Jerry Kill, who they're trying to get a spark out of.
Well, I think they definitely will. Jerry Kill was the Big Ten Coach of the Year in 2014, but Maryland beat one of those four teams. Maryland beat Michigan State last year. It just shows that Rutgers has a lot of work to do if they want to improve at all this year.
Oh, yeah, and I think they will. They got some good talent returning, including Jerry Grant, one of the best all-purpose players in the Big Ten. But you're right, they were just so bad last year, especially on defense.
Well, last year on defense, they were 116th in scoring, and then they were 126th against the pass, meaning that there were only two teams worse than them against the pass.
Actually, that might be last, but that's irrelevant to the point here. They just, they need to improve. They just need some form of progress to validate Chris Ash's tenure here.
Well, it's not like they were all freshmen last year or anything. Their whole defensive line was fifth-year seniors last year. It just didn't work out. And as I said earlier, they're just looking for improvement. That's the only thing they can hope for coming off a 2-10 year. They didn't win a game last year in the Big Ten. They're definitely looking to do that this year. I think they're going to get at least one Big Ten win this year. I just don't think it's going to come against the Terps.
Well, that kind of begs the question of who would be easier to beat than the Terps. But, so yeah, I think we're both picking Rutgers to lose this game. I'm going to say the Terps to win 30-28 in Yankee Stadium.
I don't think it's going to be that close. Rutgers really struggles up front. They have three new starters on the D-line. Even though they have an experienced linebacking core, I don't see them being able to stop Maryland's rushing attack. I have Maryland 45-17.
All right, now we move on to the next game, which should be a little bit more lopsided against Maryland.
Maryland comes home after the Rutgers game to Michigan, which is really not a team that you look forward to playing to. But as DJ says, big opportunities against these Big Ten teams is always important for his squad. They always turn up the intensity. But last year, it just didn't work out in the Big House.
Now, Maryland got crushed last year, 59-3. But I will say this. After Maryland's game, Michigan kind of fell off the wagon, if you can believe that. They lost 3 of the last 4 games. The only win was a 20-10 win at home against Indiana. Michigan kind of actually a disappointing year last year, if you can believe that.
Well, it was only disappointing after they lost to Ohio State and then Florida State in the Orange Bowl. They were considered, if they were going to win that Ohio State game, to be a college football playoff team.
Yeah, but they weren't, and after that, they lost to Iowa 2 weeks before. They just kind of fell apart at the end of the season a little bit, and they lost a lot between this year and last year. They had a school record of 10 NFL draft picks, headlined by All-Americans Jabril Peppers, Taco Charlton, and Jake Butt. And they really did lose a lot of talent, especially on defense last year. They lost 10 of 11 starters.
Well, yeah, but then they bring in guys like the former number 1 recruit overall, Rashawn Gary, and where's the fall off there? I mean, you lose NFL players, and then you replace them with guys who are ranked number 1 in recruiting.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of people are saying, is that they lost a lot, but because of Michigan's defensive scheme of blitzing a lot and replacing defensive front 7 guys a lot between plays, they still have a lot of experience. And yeah, Rashawn Gary may be a truly transcendent player. He may be one of the best players in the country as a freshman coming up.
And you also bring in or return guys like Maurice Hurst. It's really, I don't see the fall off. It's like with these Big Ten teams, the powers, there's year over year, there's really not that much fall off unless you hit a really bad year like Michigan did a few years ago. But I don't really see it. I think Harbaugh's got that train rolling, and it's going to roll right through Maryland.
Yeah, and something else we should mention is it kind of seems like a face of the Big Ten this season is quarterback Wilson Speight of Michigan, who was pretty good last year, has room for improvement. But I'm sure you've seen him if you've been following the Big Ten media at all. Number 3 for Michigan. He may be a first-round draft pick in next year's NFL draft, and he lost a lot of receiving targets. He lost the top 3 receiving targets, but they have former 5-star Jonathan People-Jones replacing him. And Mason's right. They just keep replacing talent.
Well, Wilton Spaeth is going to be an interesting story this year because near the end of the year, they really needed him to produce, especially in that game at Iowa, and it never came. So they're looking to improve there. But sometime, you know they're going to run 4 running backs, and you know they have a decent passing attack this year. So if Maryland has any chance in this game, where will it come from?
I would say it's probably going to come from the defensive secondary for Michigan. The secondary lost 3 of its 4 starters, and they don't look as great as they did last year. Last year, they probably were one of the best ones in the country, if not the best one in the country. So if Maryland can get its passing attack rolling, they may be able to get some plays downfield with them and get some momentum. But I really just don't see it. Michigan's ranked number 9 in the AP preseason. They could lose week 1 to Florida. You have to put it out there, but they still look really good. I have them winning this game 35-3 at the Terps.
Well, I remember a few years ago, I believe Maryland lost 28-0 at home, and there were opportunities in that game, but I don't see them having any opportunity in this one. I got Maryland for the second time this year, really getting blown out. I got Michigan 49-7. So I had Maryland, if you're keeping count, going into this game at 7-2 and coming out of it at 7-3.
I still think Mason is way too optimistic over there. I had Maryland coming into this 2-game stretch at 4-4 and us leaving 5-5, setting up for possibly a do-or-die showdown against Penn State. So before we move on here, I just want to point out that of the Power 3 in the Big Ten East, which is Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State, a lot of people have Michigan circled as the game we're most likely to win. So I don't really see that. I think we could beat Penn State, but I'm just throwing that out there.
Before we talk about Maryland's newest recruits and a recruiting update about basketball, remember to check out the Sports Maven radio show to hear Bruce Posner, 9 a.m. Saturday mornings on 1300 CBS Sports Radio in Baltimore or on the radio.com app. And to check out Terp Talk on Wednesday nights at 6 o'clock. We'll be previewing the Texas game this week. That is at 6 p.m. Wednesday nights, 1300 CBS Sports Radio in Baltimore or on the radio.com app. So, Jordan, we're going to move to the football recruits. Two of them have been gotten recently, and the first one is a offensive tackle out of JUCO, and that is T.J. Bradley.
And T.J. Bradley from Lackawanna Community College in Scranton is rather interesting that he didn't play football since freshman year of high school.
Yeah, well, he possesses a huge frame. Right now, he is listed at 6'8", 290, and he actually got 14 scholarship offers in 1 year of playing junior college football, including offers from Penn State, Virginia Tech, and West Virginia.
Yeah, that's crazy, especially considering he didn't play football in so long. But that size is enormous. I mean, that is a guy who could walk into the field and contribute tomorrow. And that's what we're looking for, I guess, for Maryland football.
I think they're going to look for him to add weight onto his frame, especially muscle. You're talking about a guy that's been out of football for a while. He will go into Maryland having 2 years of eligibility left. He did take a redshirt year in junior college, but it's just a big get considering who else gave him offers. It's just a big deal to get guys like this finally.
What was he rated in the composite, Mason?
Well, he was rated the 16th best player in junior college.
That's pretty good. Junior college produces some media contributors, which are always important to get. And personally, this is the type of thing I want to see from Maryland recruiting. This gives us some ammunition to work with as soon as he gets to campus.
Yeah, it's something that Maryland has definitely looked at and gotten players out of junior college, but you're looking at a really crowded position for the future on the Terps roster. I know after the next 2 years, both starting tackles, Derwin Gray and Damian Prince, will be gone, but T.J. Bradley's only got 2 years left of eligibility. He does not have that redshirt year. I see him as a senior contributing, but not right away.
I disagree with you. I think that with that frame, and considering who's been looking at him, he could really see some time in his first year. We all know that Maryland has been struggling to keep up with the O-line, or just both sides of the line in the Big Ten East. And this type of guy that you need to be able to play against Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan.
Well, that's where I disagree. I do actually agree with the fact they haven't been able to keep up, but you're only in the second year of the Durkin tenure at Maryland. I see it really picking up this year with how competitive they are down in the trenches and just moving forward from there. I think you're right. He is a good guy to add with great size, but don't count them out yet. It's only the second year.
I'm not counting them out. I'm just saying that, the freshmen are still freshmen. They show up, they're 18 years old. They're not ready to compete necessarily. This guy will probably be around 21 or 22 when he shows up, and that will mean that he is bigger, stronger, and ready to contribute sooner than the freshmen are.
Well, that's definitely going to be true. And really, there's not a lot of film on him because he didn't play high school football, so you can't really look at the film and do analysis on that. But from what the coaching staff has been looking at, he fits right in with what they want. Big guys on the outside, and I think that's a really good get for them as a program.
Yeah, and I think, just going back to Mason's foundation talk they always talks about, this is a great guy to get for the foundation because it provides you with something with your star running backs to run behind. These offensive linemen, you really can never have enough of them because of how important they are to the team. They are probably the second most important unit behind quarterback on offense, and I think this is a great guy to get.
So the other guy they got is a wide receiver tight end named Chagozem Akonkwa, and is a guy who had some big-time offers from teams that love to run the ball.
Yeah, he has offers from Wisconsin and Georgia Tech, which I consider interesting because he's considered hired a flex tight end, which means he's a receiving tight end essentially. He was a receiver in high school, and when he goes to college, people think he's going to be a big receiving tight end. But Maryland does not have receiving tight ends; they have blocking tight ends.
Well, this guy fits right into Walt Bell's wide receiving core. A guy who's 6'3", 225, can get out and block on the edges. That's what Walt wants. That's what this offense is geared to.
Maryland has already said they want him to play tight end, so I'm not exactly sure what they're going for here. Because, like you say, Walt Bell likes blocking receivers.
Well, Walt Bell also likes guys that fit in his system. And I think this guy does. He just has not found a tight end that really goes with what he wants to do. And they go out and they seem to find guys who are very specific to what they want to do as an offense.
But I don't think this guy does fit with what Walt Bell's trying to do. That's what I'm saying here.
But you don't know what Walt Bell is trying to do because he hasn't used the tight end position yet.
That's what I'm saying, is he seems to like blocking tight ends. He doesn't really use tight ends.
But he doesn't use tight ends at all. So he looks for a guy that fits what he wants at tight end, and he goes out and he recruits them, and then they look to add that position into the offense.
Why do you know that, though? We don't know that he uses tight ends, period.
But
he doesn't seem
they went out and they got...
That's what I'm saying.
That's what they do at these receiver positions, and it's already shown. They haven't looked for classic receivers, and this guy's not a classic tight end. Walt Bell finds uses for the guys that he goes out and gets. So I think this guy is going to be a very effective receiving tight end for Maryland.
Well, if we look at him as a person, I'm just going to call him C. He's from Powder Springs, Georgia. He's another Georgia commit. This is, I think, the fourth one that Maryland's gotten. And he had offers from Wisconsin and Georgia Tech, who both like to run the ball a lot, so maybe they're linked from a more receiving position. He played receiver most of his career, but because of his size and his speed, which lacks a little bit for receiving, a lot of people think he's going to move to tight end, and that's why we're talking about him as a tight end. Most sites are still list him as receiver, though. But Maryland exclusively considers him a tight end.
I do think that's interesting, and you're talking about a guy who's shown great speed, as you said, but you are right. Maryland has not shown use for the tight end position, and I'm really interested to see where they're going to use this guy, because I like the position of tight end, and Maryland in history has done really well at that position, and ever since the Randy Edsall era started, you haven't seen a lot of it, other than in positions inside the 10-yard line.
No, we really haven't, and everyone played out with Maryland has recruited another tight end before, though I can't remember his name right now. He's more of a blocking type that we've seen Walt Bell use so far. So I am interested to see where this guy's going to end up.
Well, I think that's going to do it for our football recruiting segment. Those are two guys that I think will fit really well into the foundation that Maryland is building. And that's my wrap-up of that segment. Jordan, anything else?
Just one more thing that's kind of interesting is a couple of hours ago, Maryland posted a picture on Twitter of other NASA guys saying the stats are strong at Maryland. So the connection is definitely building, and Maryland's playing it up.
Well, DMV to UMD is really all that Maryland is about right now in football recruiting.
But I do want to point out that neither of these two guys are from the DMV, so that's a little bit different and something that we should look for in the future to see if the DMV movement keeps going.
Well, I think it's gone pretty far at this point, but you're still going to have guys from outside the DMV. It's not necessarily a bad thing. I know that their focus is going to be on this area, but it's always good to get guys from other places, too.
It definitely is.
Basketball recruiting, why do you have to be so complicated? Why can't we just get our 5-star guys and prepare to win a championship?
Basketball recruiting is definitely not easy anymore. So Maryland's top two remaining targets on the board, Moses Brown and Keldon Johnson, have both officially announced their visits to Maryland, which is fantastic news, by the way, because they only get so many visits, and it's great that Maryland is part of those visits.
Yeah, and they seem to have the last visit, which is the most important one on these guys, Moses Brown will visit Maryland on September 28th and Keldon Johnson on September 23rd. But here comes Kentucky into the Keldon Johnson race.
Yep, Keldon Johnson is the number 14th ranked composite player and a shooting guard who Maryland and Texas have been fighting for a while, but Kentucky has thrown their hat in the ring, which is, of course, horrible news for both Maryland and Texas. And he's currently scheduled to visit Texas on the 1st and Florida State on September 8th. But with Kentucky getting an offer in, they'll probably want him to visit as well, and he'll probably take it considering they're Kentucky. But Maryland has a good foot in this race. You know, a lot of people don't know a lot about Keldon Johnson, but he is a great wing and is a fantastic shooter. And he talks to Maryland assistant Kevin Broadus nearly every day, according to him. Kevin Broadus has a connection to Keldon Johnson's family. He recruited his brother Caleb Johnson to Georgetown, which probably is a good thing. So Maryland's got a leg in that race, but the race everybody wants to know about for real is Moses Brown.
Yeah, Moses Brown seems to be between Maryland and Louisville, or at least that's where his visits are scheduled to. This is the guy that I thought Maryland was going to get from the beginning. The rest of them seem to be more interesting to me because Moses Brown seems like the guy that's most likely to come to Maryland.
Well, we can't underestimate how good Moses Brown is. He's a top 10 recruit. He's a 7'1" true center. He still shows some interest in Kentucky, but Kentucky hasn't offered him yet, so he's unlikely to go there at this point. So he visits Louisville on September 2nd, and Maryland almost a whole month later on September 28th. And after that, we'll probably see the signs of a decision coming through, but he's heavily considered a Maryland lean by everyone right now.
Yeah, that's really good for Maryland, but I'm looking for them to get a guard. So in the point guard race, they have fallen out of the one for Emmanuel quickly. He dropped Maryland from his list the other night on Comcast Sportsnet, and they're still chasing the 4-star point guard Devin Dotson.
Yeah, Emmanuel Quigley, I mean, most people, including myself, just expect him to go to Kentucky at this point. He fits their mold. He was with Calipari a lot over the summer. So he's probably going to Kentucky. Devin Dotson is from North Carolina, and he plays with Aaron Wiggins, who we're going to talk about in a minute, who is a commit to Maryland already. So we have a foot in that race, but it doesn't look exceedingly likely. Devin Dotson looks like a Kansas lean, which puts the question up of who you're going to get at the point guard.
Well, they will still have Anthony Cowan. It's just a matter of finding a backup now. With Jalen Brantley gone, and even if they did have him, he would be graduating this year. You have to find a backup point guard.
Yeah, you can only get who wants to come to Maryland, though. That's the problem here. So Devin Dotson, of course, we want him, but if he's going to Kansas, it's hard to sell Maryland over Kansas, especially when Mark Turgeon went to Kansas.
Look.
So,
They just have to get one. It doesn't have to be the highest rated guy. Just get a point guard on this team, please.
Oh, you know it's not that easy. That's how you just said basketball recruiting. It's very complicated. Definitely more complicated than football recruiting.
So let's take a minute to talk about the guys that the Terps do have, and that is Jalen Smith, who just, every time I look, seems to be climbing the composite rankings, now up to the 23rd spot after ESPN bringing him up.
So ESPN finally posted an update to the recruiting rankings, which is great news for Maryland, because both Jalen Smith and Aaron Wiggins jumped hugely in the ESPN rankings, which means they also jumped hugely in the composite rankings. Jalen Smith is now officially a 5-star in ESPN's rankings at number 15, and he's 23rd in the composite, as Mason just said. So Jalen Smith is really rising quickly. He played great over the summer, and he looks like he's going to turn into a superstar.
And the other one is Aaron Wiggins, who is now 39th in ESPN, pulling him up 8 spots in composite rankings to number 40. That's something that I really like to see, because when Maryland got Aaron Wiggins, he wasn't ranked that high, but as you see, just keeps on going up and up and up on the charts. Maybe he'll make it to top 30 before the 2018 class signs.
Yeah, that'd be great. Aaron Wiggins was not... Yeah, you were right. He wasn't even top 100 when we first got him, but he has shot up the charts since then. He's very athletic, and he's starting to develop the skill set to go with it. He's, of course, coached by Terp legend Keith Gatlin in AAU, so hopefully he turns into a similar player, because he is rising quickly, and between the two of these guys, we may have a great class by ourselves.
Yeah, they need definitely. You would really want them to add one more guy, and that's
I hope
just
they add a few more with the guys they have. If you could add Moses Brown, Keldon Johnson, and Devin Dotson in addition to these guys, you might have the number one class in the country.
that would be great. But at this point, I feel like everybody's spirits when we released our first podcast and it was about Jalen Smith, everybody's spirits were really high. Like Maryland's gonna get a point guard and Moses Brown, and they already have Jalen Smith and Aaron Wiggins, but it just seems like Terp fans' spirits are crushed by what's happening. They don't feel like they're going to get anybody now.
Well, yeah, they lost Herman Reddish, who, of course, is a great player, but some people thought he was considering Maryland, but he dropped out of the race. Emmanuel Quigley's dropped out, and we were hoping Moses Brown was committed by now, but it's not going to be a while is what it looks like. So I know it's kind of hard to keep the faith, but we're going to have a good class, and we just need to keep believing that we will.
That's what you always tell me. And before we end this podcast, college football has returned.
Yes, it has. There's some games. There's actually a lot of FCS games today, but there's some FBS games, including the huge track-wise making the play UMass today. So, just keep your eyes open because they're there. They should be on ESPN.
As I said on our YouTube channel at Maryland Practice, this is one of the best times of year for college sports. And next week, we're going to be in Texas.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I'll be going to Texas, too, for a reunion special podcast. And hopefully Maryland pulls out the win. I have them losing, but Mason has them winning. So hopefully we can get an AP-ranked win to start off the season.
Well, hopefully they play this game and we're able to get there. It is supposed to rain in Austin, Texas from, last night till Friday. So I'm not sure what the situation's going to be down there, but I hope it's good.
Oh, yeah, Hurricane Harvey's pulling through Texas right now. So, hopefully everybody stays okay during the hurricane, and hopefully we get to play the game next week. I know one game in Texas, I can't remember which one, has already been canceled.
Yeah, that was the Sam Houston State FCS game.
Yeah, that was supposed to happen today. So, hopefully we do get to play the game, but I don't know what's going to happen. It is very realistic that it could be delayed to a later date.
Well, I really hope that everybody stays safe down in Texas, and hopefully we'll talk to you from Austin, Texas next week, and that's going to do it for this week's Young Terp podcast presented by Viner Consulting. You can check out Viner Consulting for all of your business solutions. You can check them out on the web at oneviner.com. That is OneVIENER.com. And we will be back this Wednesday for another weekday podcast to wrap up our final thoughts on our football previews just 3 days before the actual season kicks off. And I don't know what Jordan's going to say about the end of the Maryland season, but I hope he has us in a bowl. So you'll get to see that this Wednesday on the Terp Talk Young Terp podcast. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll be back on Wednesday.